Okay, hi Year 9 and welcome to this tutorial on preparing for your role play, the first part of the GCSE Speaking Exam. I've got a role play card ready for you, so this is what you would see in the actual GCSE Speaking Exam. During your 12 minutes preparation time, you would start with preparing this. It doesn't take quite as long to prepare as the photo card, so we usually recommend that you spend about 4 of the 12 minutes on the role play and then the 8 remaining minutes on the photo card, as the photo card requires a bit more development. So this is what you see. The first thing to point out is that you must read the instructions here first. You will see the instructions to candidates are in English, and it gives you this information at the top here about who your teacher will play. And in this one, it tells us that your teacher is going to play the role of a receptionist. And obviously that gives us some information straight away that tells us a bit about where the role play is set. Okay, it then tells you how you should address the teacher examiner. So in this case, it is as Sie rather than du. And then it gives you a little reminder of the 2 bullet points that you will always see on a role play. So this exclamation mark where you will have to respond to something unpredicted, and this question mark where you will have to ask a question of the examiner. Okay, and then just looking in a little bit closer at the actual task itself, you then have this scene-setting sentence right at the top here in German, or in fact in whatever language you're doing, but obviously this one's German one. So you have your scene-setting sentence, and that tells you where you are essentially playing the role. So in this one, Sie buchen ein Hotelzimmer in Österreich. Sie sprechen mit der Person an der Hotelrezeption. So as I am preparing this, I'm going to be bearing in mind Hotelzimmer and Hotelrezeption. So obviously the word hotel here tells us a lot about the context of what we are preparing. Then we see our bullet points here, and the information that's given is the information that you should be responding to. They don't give you a question to answer, they give you the information that you should be responding with. So I'm just going to run you through and show you how I would prepare for this as a role play. So the first one, we've read already our little scene-setting sentence, Sie buchen ein Hotelzimmer in Österreich. So it tells us that we're booking a hotel room in Austria, and we're speaking to the person at the hotel reception. And then that first bullet point there, you can see, Ihr Zimmer, wie viele Personen? Now, it's important here to point out this word, ihr. This is just the polite version of dein. So you're used to using the word du for you. And as you can see in this particular role play, we are using the word sie rather than du. So all the sort of versions of you and your will be in the polite form. So this one, Ihr Zimmer, just means your room. And then you see the details that they want to give you about your room is wie viele Personen, so how many people. Now, one of the key phrases that you will use in a role play is the phrase ich möchte. I'm going to use that as a starting point for the preparation of this first bullet point. Ich möchte means I would like, and it comes in really handy in lots of different role play scenarios. Obviously this one in a hotel, we would like to book a room, so we would like, ich möchte, ein Zimmer, so using the vocabulary from the bullet point. And then it's asking us to say how many people we want a room for. So, ich möchte ein Zimmer für 2 Leute. Or you could use Personen as is given in the bullet point. Okay. Just a point on numbers, whenever you are preparing in your GCSE speaking exam, whether that's the role play or the photo card, I would always write the number down rather than write it as a number 2, because obviously you're going to have to say that out loud. And in the heat of the exam, sometimes we forget our numbers and we can waste time that way. So always write down the number that you've got to say. So first one, ich möchte ein Zimmer für 2 Personen or für 2 Leute. So we have covered this first bullet point now. Then moving on to the second bullet point, was für ein Zimmer. Now, was für is quite a common question that comes up on these role plays. Was für means what sort of. And in this case, we are being asked to give 2 details about our room. Okay, and the 2 details is literally just 2 things. There's not a huge amount of development needed here. So we are going to again use our phrase ich möchte. Ein großes Zimmer. So here's your first detail, a big room mit einem Balkon. So, although we have only written 1 sentence, we have given 2 details, a big room with a balcony. And that's your 2 details right there. So, ich möchte ein großes Zimmer mit einem Balkon. And you've covered then your 2 details from the bullet point. Okay, so moving on to the 3rd bullet point for wie lange. So how long, for how long do you want to stay? And in this case, again, we can reuse ich möchte. 2 Nächte, we could say 2 nights. Or maybe if you struggle with the plural of Nacht being Nächte, it's a little bit irregular, that one, then we could make it eine Woche, is a little bit easier to say. So ich möchte 2 Nächte oder eine Woche bleiben is to stay. So I would like to stay 2 nights or a week. Now with this one, if you just said 2 Nächte or eine Woche, you would get 1 out of the 2 marks available for that bullet point. Because you've not put it in a full sentence, you don't get the full 2 points, but you would still get 1 mark. So if you were struggling to put it into a full sentence, you still get the point across by just saying 2 nights or 1 week. Okay, and then our next bullet point, the 4th bullet point down, is the one where we've got a question mark. The question mark always requires you, as the person being examined, to ask a question of the examiner. And they will always give you another word next to that question mark, and that is what your question should be about. And it's really important that your question does ask about the word next to the question mark, otherwise you will not get the marks available. So in this case, we've got the word Preis, which means price, as you would expect to be asking in booking a hotel room. You want to know how much you are going to be paying for your hotel room. So your next bullet point asks you to ask a question. So we're going to say, was kostet das? We can keep it as simple as was kostet das, or we can say was kostet das Zimmer? What does the room cost? Okay, you could also use wie viel kostet das? Or if we were struggling with sort of recalling the vocabulary for the word kostet, you could say, was ist der Preis? So you are in that case using the vocabulary from the bullet point there. Was ist der Preis? What is the price? So you have various different ways of asking that question. I would always say try and keep it as simple as possible. And if needs be, if you really are struggling to find the vocabulary to formulate a question, one little tip is to actually just say this word with a question intonation. So if we're really struggling to formulate a question here, we could just say, Preis, and although that is not going to get you the full 2 marks available, it may well get you 1 out of the 2 marks. Okay, and then moving on finally to this last bullet point here, we can't prepare this bullet point because it's an exclamation mark. However, you can be having a think given the context of the role play. So we're in a hotel, we've asked for a room, we've asked for what type of room, how long we're going to stay, how much it costs, and then we can sort of think logically what might happen next. In this particular example, on the examiner's notes, the question that the examiner would ask you is wie viel Uhr möchten Sie frühstücken? wie viel Uhr möchten Sie frühstücken? So they're asking you at what time you would like to have breakfast. And in that case, we can just say 8 Uhr, at 8 o'clock. The exclamation mark does not necessarily need to be in a full sentence as long as you have covered or answered the question that they've asked. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, and you are ready now to prepare your own role play. Do remember, with role play, RP, role play, but also really precise. We don't need to develop our answers. We don't need to give any opinion unless it is specified on the bullet point. Okay, good luck.